And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Joining us now, our friend Thom Hartmann, legendary radio host, of course, the Hartmann Report, noon to 3 p.m. Eastern Time on this very channel, New York Times bestselling author, and sign up for his Substack. It's free, the Hartmann Report at hartmannreport.com. I get it every day. I learn a lot. It's excellent. Hello, Thom. Nice to see you.
Hey, Dean. Great to be with you again. Thanks for inviting me.
So, my friend, we're in wartime now. I don't think we've been at war when we've talked, but this is a war. I mean, this is not a operation. This is not like a little mission. This is a war we're in right now. And how do you think this ends? I mean, there's no right or wrong answer, but we are 9 days in. I don't really know what the end game is of Trump. I know what Netanyahu would like, but if Netanyahu's goal is the one achieved, it'll be dividing Iran into parts, and that's going to take a long time. You got the fund a civil war and fuel a civil war and all that kind of stuff. So where do you think this is going? Is it open-ended for a long period of time?
Yeah, I think Netanyahu wants to do in Iran what he did in Gaza, and he's moving in that direction. In terms of long term, where does this go? In response to your specific question,
Right.
I'm very concerned that we could be looking at the beginning of World War III. Russia has significant interests here. China just lost a lot of their oil supply from the Middle East, which is pushing them closer to China or to Russia. They're having to buy from Russia. India lost their oil supply. They're having to buy from Russia now. Trump acknowledged that and gave Russia a waiver to his sanctions to export oil to India. I mean, how crazy is that? The main beneficiary of this war so far is Russia. We're burning through our Tomahawk and Patriot missiles that we were sharing with Ukraine, at least the Patriots. We've burned through more in the week of this war so far than we gave to Iran or to Afghanistan, Ukraine, excuse me, for the entire last year.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. We shot off more than we've given them. And so it's, so for the moment, this is really working to the benefit of Putin, driving oil prices up and things like that. But as we continue to deplete our weaponry, it certainly seems logical to me that China would look at this and go, good time to take Taiwan. And Russia is already making noise, or at least their media is, their state media, talking about how Trump's invasion of Iran proves that Russia's invasion of Ukraine was not illegal on the international stage and was not a violation of international laws, because that's what America's doing right now. I mean, why are these people complaining about us? I could imagine Putin getting dragged into this thing too, or jumping into it. But my biggest concern, frankly, is China right now.
We have Trump and Netanyahu telling the people of Iran, rise up and we've got you and all this. Meanwhile, we've killed at least 1,200 civilians. We did bomb. The New York Times did a great frame-by-frame showing the Tomahawk missile hitting the school that killed north of 150 schoolgirls. We've hit a UNESCO site, hospital, apartment buildings. The air is filled with toxic smoke. Add to that, the people of Iran know America's history in Iran, from getting rid of Mossadegh in 1953 and propping up a Shah. Why they would ever view the United States of America as the savior, it defies logic. I know most people hate the regime, so they might be like, okay, they're terrible, but let's get rid of this regime. But do you think anyone in Iran actually looks at America as a good faith actor in any of this?
No, other than maybe the Shah's son, who wants to be the next leader.
Dreaming, yes.
Who's been kind of sucking up. But no, and in fact, I wrote a piece last week in which I was talking about how, and went off on it on my show as well, talking about how Kushner, Netanyahu used to sleep in Kushner's bed. I mean, literally, he slept in Kushner's bedroom when he would visit New York City, and Kushner would sleep on the couch when he was a little kid. And, or maybe they had a guest bedroom, I don't know, whatever, but, and according to the New York Times, Netanyahu slept in Kushner's bed. And they've been family friends forever. So Kushner goes to Israel and Witkoff, meets with Netanyahu, then goes to Oman or goes to Switzerland and meets with the Omani foreign minister to negotiate, this whole situation with, theoretically with Iran. And I think that, the Kushner and Netanyahu were working together to string Iran along, because Iran, the Omani foreign minister came out and said, Iran's going to give you everything you want. You're going to get a better deal than Obama got. Not only will they swear up and down and put inspectors in and cameras and everything else that there's no nuclear program, but they're willing to say no ICBMs, no missiles that are capable of hitting the United States, and they certainly don't have any now. So, you guys got everything you wanted out of us, and it wasn't enough. And I think it wasn't enough because I think, Kushner and Netanyahu were playing the Omanis and the Iranians for fools. And I'm wondering if Putin was telling Trump, in their biweekly phone conversations, hey, that idea of attacking Iran, that would be a really good idea. Knowing I mean, this is the biggest lifeline was thrown to Putin. He's
Yep.
got oil above $100 a barrel. He's making money, serious money now. He's
Yep.
got both China and India buying oil from him. He's got Europe where he wants them. I mean, they're in a real bind in terms of LNG, that was coming out of Bahrain and some of these other places. And now you've got even, this war over the destruction of oil facilities, which tremendously helps Putin. So, I don't know at what point Putin might turn against us. I guess, if it looks like maybe we're losing or something, I'm not really sure. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Dean.
I'm not, but it's interesting about the oil. Oil was trading around $55 a barrel in December, 55, just 60 in January. And now it's went over 100. It sat last time I checked around 98, 99. But the more fires that fill the sky of oil, the higher it goes, the more you can't get a ship through the Straits of Hormuz. And you've got the Gulf nations saying, we're not even going to pump anymore because we can't ship anything. And they're worried about their storage facilities being filled with oil as well. That's a reasonable threat. And we don't even know what's going on in those countries. We don't know how bad the drones are damaging their infrastructure. No clue. You can't. Our anti-drone technology apparently isn't that great. Anti-missile stuff really good, but even that, you can't be everywhere. When you have the entire Gulf to protect, it's just not humanly possible or technologically.
Zelensky is sending advisors.
That's what I saw, because they have the anti-drone technology, which is very good. It's worked against the Iranian drones. But even that, it's one thing to be in one theater of war in a part of Ukraine. It's different if you've got the UAE, you've got Kuwait, you have Saudi, you've got it go up and down the Gulf region. I don't know if you have enough wherewithal, enough equipment to knock them all down. That's a big swath. I mean, I've flown from Kuwait to Dubai. It's like an hour flight. Like, this isn't like all on top of each other. It's spread out. I've been to Saudi. Like, that's really big. I've driven across Saudi. That's a really big country. Like, not an entire country, but a big chunk of it. So, it's not like this little theater of war. This is massive. And there's no way to stop everything. And no, Trump didn't think it through. I can't even believe, did you see the approval numbers? They moved up a little, but they're going to be at their high point. Marist poll showed 44% of Americans approve, which is like 85% Republicans, and then about 30% independents and like 15% Democrats. But I'm surprised even 44% approve of this now.
Well, you've got the right-wing media, the billionaire-owned media, the Murdoch media, pushing this. I mean, they always love war. It's more money for defense contractors.
Yeah.
It's blood and gore. It increases the probability of destroying democracy and increasing, autocracy, oligarchy. So, there's never been a war that the Murdochs didn't love. And I'm assuming that the same will be true of the Ellison family. So, that makes a certain amount of sense. And I think over time, as the right-wing media, particularly as more and more our mainstream media becomes the right-wing media,
right?
With CNN on the chopping block now too, and they're really putting the screws over at CBS, that you're probably going to see those approval numbers go up in a small way because of the audience that's been captured by right-wing media. But I think that's their absolute ceiling. And if things go bad, if more Americans die, if Trump shows up for more dignified returns, with a baseball cap on and refuses to bow his head, it's just it's the kind of stuff that if Obama had done any of it, the Republicans would be impeaching him right now.
Right, and Democrats won't even. And that brings me to the next thing. And I'm talking with Thom Hartmann. How do you view the Democrats' response? Now, the good thing is only a few have been supportive. John Fetterman being the only Democrat in the Senate, and about 6 House members. What a contrast to the Iraq War. About 40% of Democrats in the House and the Senate voted for it. So it's vastly different in that way. How do you think they've been in messaging, and is it breaking through? Is it unified from what you've seen?
The Democrats have a real messaging problem. A large part of it is that they don't have a messaging infrastructure. The Republicans started building this, as you well know, back in the 1980s, and it really went on steroids in the 90s when Rush Limbaugh rolled out his show and Fox News rolled out in 96 and 97. But back in the 80s, you had right-wing billionaires and wealthy white right-wingers start, well, purchasing up radio stations. And then that really went on steroids after Clinton signed the Telecommunications Act in 96. So by the year 2000, there was, 1,500 right-wing radio stations, 300 right-wing television stations, three right-wing television networks, and a growing number of right-wing podcasts. There's nothing like that on the Democratic side. I mean, they got you and me. I mean, we're some of the biggest voices in the Democratic space, and the platforms that we have compared to having 1,500 radio stations are small, relatively speaking. I mean, we're doing okay, and we've got a good business, and we're reaching a lot of people, millions of people, but it's still small compared to this giant right-wing thing. So number one, the Republicans have this built-in structural advantage. That's, by the way, how they took over all those red states in the Midwest and the upper Midwest was, going in and buying up radio stations in cheap media markets and putting Rush Limbaugh wannabes, local Rush Limbaugh wannabes on the air. So there's that. And then, you've got the divisions within the Democratic Party that date back to 92, when Bill Clinton took about half the party to the neoliberal side and said, we're going to embrace free trade, and we're going to, embrace militarism, and we're going to, go along with the Republicans to cut social programs and taxes. He actually raised taxes slightly, but that's still going on. I mean, the Progressive Caucus only represents about half of the members of Congress. So, the Democrats are in they're in a tight spot where they're struggling. And then, of course, every year, every new Senate that comes along, every 2 years when there's a new Senate, the Republicans try to identify one Democrat that they can corrupt, that they can buy off. Last time around, it was Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema. This time around, it's John Fetterman. They will always find one guy or one woman who is willing to just sell out, like Fetterman is doing as well. And sometimes they'll pitch ideology. More often than not, they're pitching goodies. Manchin and Sinema making millions off their affiliation with the Republicans. So I don't see this as anything easy to solve. And then, of course, you got the problem that Chuck Schumer is an absolutely incompetent communicator. And Hakeem Jeffries is he's no Nancy Pelosi. I mean, he just had, 5 or 6 Democrats vote for the war in Iran. Nancy Pelosi would have had those people lose all their committee assignments. I mean, he's got big sticks he could use to beat up Democrats who screw with him, who go against the party, and he's not doing it. And
I know.
I'm astonished at the pathetic weakness of the Democratic leadership.
And it's Chuck Schumer is a lost cause. There's nothing that's going to save him. Hakeem Jeffries is a different generation. There are times Hakeem can be a good communicator, but I think I'm not sure what it takes. Like his heart has to be into it, or it's an issue that's really clear. He has slammed Trump, but because he's not seen, I guess, with the gravitas, he doesn't get the media, or maybe he doesn't want to go in the media. I don't know. Maybe he gets a million offers and says no left and right. But what I do know is that Donald Trump today and yesterday and today, Tom, I've been following it. He's been on the phone with the press, reporters after reporters, talking to people all over the place. And there's one, just a new Wall Street Journal report, Fox News, talking to ABC, talking to Dana Bash. He's working the phones the last 2 days to sell this war. And I don't see the Democrats working to wake people up to how bad it is and how bad it's going to be economically, and just waiting for people to see high gas prices. I don't think that's enough. I think you've got to connect it for people so they understand why the gas prices are going up.
It's not a strategy. I mean, what's happening, I suspect, is that they are afraid that, of what I said I believe is going to happen, what Tim Snyder in his newsletter today or yesterday came out and said he believes is the only reason for the Iran war, which is an attack within the United States. And, if a 9/11 kind of event happens, and Tim Snyder, the expert on fascism, just came out and said the singular reason why Trump invaded Iran, as opposed to any other country in the world, is because they have an international network of people who are willing to attack within the United States. And the new mullah just issued a fatwa encouraging Muslims within the United States to rise up and attack the United
Oh, I
States.
didn't see that. I got to go
Yeah.
to. I got
Yeah,
things.
and
I
I'm
got
sure
to
it'll be
find
all
out.
over. It'll be Fox News 24/7 Muslim bashing, But if something like that were to happen, and I think there's a reasonable possibility, maybe even a probability that something like that will happen. I mean, that's how Hitler got catapulted to power. It was the Reichstag fire, when Marius van der Lubbe, the Dutch communist, mentally ill Dutch communist, was convinced by the Nazis it would be a good idea to set the Parliament building on fire. If and frankly, I wouldn't put false flag past these guys, but
Yes, I agree.
but at the very least, I mean, keep in mind, Bin Laden attacked the United States because he was pissed off that we had left soldiers in the Bin Salten Air Force Base. That men were watching pornography and drinking alcohol, and women were showing their elbows driving cars. He told the New York Times that in 1999 that he was going to come after us. So it doesn't necessarily happen in a week. But man, I am very concerned. And I think there's a lot of Democrats who are thinking, okay, if the Iranians can pull off a strike inside the United States, there will be a massive rally around the flag effect, like
Oh
there
my
was
God.
after
Yeah.
9/11. And then the Democrats are going to be standing there with egg on their face, or that's what they're fearing.
Well, it may not have made national press, but in New York, two guys were arrested for throwing a small, they're in their 19 or 20 years old, two Muslim guys outside of Gracie Mansion where the mayor lives. Gracie Mansion is where the mayor always lives, like our White House. But there was a anti-Muslim protest, 20 people and like 125 people against them. But these young guys show up and they said they're inspired by ISIS. Now we heard today the police commissioner here in New York said that, and the mayor confirmed that. And they threw these rudimentary things that didn't blow up at all. They were the size of a football. And you're like, and by the way, just so it's clear, Al Qaeda and ISIS have no love for Iran in general because one's a Sunni movement, the other's a Shia movement. But so we have no idea. And these guys did not say they did this for Iran. We have no idea. And there's a lot of sketchiness about these two guys. Now, thankfully, it didn't go off. No one was hurt at all. They were arrested immediately. It's on video. They light it and they drop it. And the cops are standing there looking right at them like, what are you doing? And the one guy yells, Allah Akbar. These 20-year-old guys, they just tackle them and take them away. So again, there's no indication it's a false flag at all. I'm just saying things don't add up. Like, I don't know what's going on. Why would you do this in front of the Muslim mayor's house, the first Muslim mayor of New York? You're going to detonate a bomb? I mean, what is going on?
You wonder if it was a Marius van der Lubbe.
Sorry?
You wonder if it was a Marius van der Lubbe type of. He was the guy. He was the 23-year-old Dutch communist who was mentally ill. He was schizophrenic, or that's the best guess. And the most historians will suggest, I mean, it's still a theory, but that the Nazis smuggled him into the Parliament building through they had a building next door that had an underground tunnel that went right into the Parliament building, and then he just went around and set all those giant hanging things on fire. But it's so it could be that these two guys are just like mentally ill. I mean, they're just like suckers. I don't know.
They're the young, and they had a very sophisticated bomb material in it. It was found that used by ISIS and other places, and they're saying they're ISIS inspired now, which is not Iranian inspired. You're not doing this to avenge Iran. Nothing makes sense, and they could have mental illness. We're going to find out more. Thankfully, no one was hurt. They were arrested immediately. Like, they just did it right in front of the cops. Like, it's very odd. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. So, Thom, at what point do you think, look, we have gas prices now up from 280 to about 350. What's not getting the coverage are diesel gas prices are up $1, 25% in this month. And that's a big thing. And that has obviously impacts trunks delivering food, groceries, store items and everything. We're going to see inflation across the board begin to go up. Is that something Democrats should at least talk about? Like, there's no risk in that, tying it together for people?
Yeah, no, and Democrats are. Again, there's not a unified messaging system or strategy for the Democratic Party, sadly, but yeah, they are, and I think people across the country are talking about that, and I think that's why you pointed out Trump is just doing a full court press with the media. That's why he knows that the economy is going south. He doesn't see an easy way out of this. He's got to rally the people around him and get them to stop paying attention to the economy and stop paying attention to the increasing credibility being associated with this 13-year-old woman or girl who, she's now a woman, who claims that he raped her when she was 13. Now it's coming out that yes, she said she told the FBI a bunch of details about Trump and his businesses that only Trump knew, that she could only have known if she had actually heard them from Trump. His favorite number, how he was running, money laundering operations in his casino, stuff like that. These conversations he was having with Jeffrey Epstein that she was overhearing. And, he doesn't want any of that. Um, I'm still trying to figure out why Trump pulled the trigger when he did. And I continue to think that um, the whole reason why Jared Kushner and Witkoff, but Kushner's the primary actor, was willing to have these meetings with the Omani foreign minister and was willing to say, okay, yeah, this is a deal we'll take. Now take it back to Iran, knowing that the Iranian leadership would have to meet to discuss this deal.
Mhm.
And that was when, the moment that they were meeting, that was the moment that Netanyahu took an opportunity to kill them all. And I believe it was Israeli weapons that wiped out the senior leadership, not American. I could be wrong. Um,
Well,
but
I think all the weapons are our weapons.
yeah, ultimately.
To be honest, at this point, Israel is just the biggest military base we have in the world. I mean, it really is our testing
Or
ground.
vice versa. I mean, which one's the dog and which one's the tail?
All I can tell you is, look, Netanyahu, and I was on your show last week, Netanyahu, there's no doubt, lobbied extensively because we know he did for four decades. He wanted to blow up Iran. They were always a week away from a nuclear program. But I can tell you with confidence that Donald Trump is motivated by one thing: what's good for Donald Trump. So how does this help him? He doesn't care Netanyahu's protected or Israel's protected. Is there a financial benefit? Is there a political benefit? And that's the metric for making this decision. If he thinks he's going to be a tough guy, I'm going to be a strong man, or I'm a wartime president, or the Epstein file stuff was that jarring because they're really close.
Or all of the above.
Right, exactly. So it could be like it's a win-win. I
Yeah.
change the topic, I control the narrative. Everyone has to talk about a war, and we're going to keep this war going for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And that could be it. It's all I know is there are 7 Americans dead, and we're going to feel the blowback here economically, and maybe even the blowback in terms of terrorism. I mean, that's really blowback in terms of intelligence community. They'll talk about blowback being something on our domestic soil because of an operation on foreign soil.
I would love to see the internal Pentagon documents around this.
Yeah.
Because there had to be people, intelligence analysts who were just pulling their hair out. I mean, it would, I can't, Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, came out and said, oh, yeah, there's a good thing. We're going to do this. But he didn't seem very enthusiastic to me. He looked like a hostage. And, when he was up there with Hegseth. And Hegseth is an alcoholic, mediocre intellect, former Fox weekend host. I mean, who drove 2 veteran-based charities into the ground because he was such an incompetent manager, and is obsessed with his own virility, and his fake Christianity. This is a guy that Jesus would drive out of the temple in a heartbeat. So,
good point. What do you, last
I,
thing? How much do you think Christian nationalism is playing a role? I mean, we've seen the reports of what's being told to soldiers. Pete Hegseth certainly is a believer in this kind of idea. Do you think that's fueling some wing of the support for this in the military?
I think so. Yeah, certainly with Hegseth. I mean, I had Mikey Weinstein, the founder of the Military Religious Freedom Foundation, on my program last Monday, because he was compiling all these reports, from over 50 different places, all military bases all around the country, where commanding officers were telling their subordinates that this is our opportunity to bring Jesus back to earth. And and so many people are exploiting that, by the way. I mean, I helped start what is now the largest child carrying program in Israel, for Jewish and Muslim kids and affiliated kids. And so I've been in that country a lot. I worked there for a brief time, and have a number of friends who are Orthodox Jews and Hasids, and they basically just kind of laugh at the American Christians, because the whole Christian shtick, this whole thing that Mike Huckabee is all about, is there has to be a war in Israel. It has to kill all the Jews except 144,000 of them. That 144,000 Jewish survivors have to convert to Christianity, and then in that moment, Jesus appears in the clouds. I mean, that's this sales pitch that Hal Lindsey started in the 1970s. And, it's not even really genuinely biblical. It's a real stretch. If you read Revelation 5, 6, 7, it's like, this is contortionism. But, but it brings a hell of a lot of tourists to Israel. It brings a hell of a lot of money to Israel. And you know, these Christian suckers, and now Pete Hegseth is exploiting it, you know, and by the way, I should point out the mullah in Iran who got killed, and his son now who has lost his mother, his wife, and his father and mother, and is going to be, I think, thinking about revenge as much as anything else. These guys have their own version of that, where, you know, in the final day, you know, it's this millennialist. I'm sure you know more about this than I do, being Muslim, but you know, there's this millennialist view. I don't know what it's called. There's a word for it. That you know, the Mufti is going to return. What's the story?
Well, that in the Shia, I'm not Shia, so I don't know the details of it, but
Yeah.
it is part of the missing Shia, the 11th Mufti or the 12th Mufti. But in any event, yes, and look, religion. If you know anything about it, you hear about it. It all sounds like science fiction, right? The only
Yeah.
reason Noah and the Ark is like, oh, that's a cute story, is because we know it from childhood in America. If anyone just told you that for the first time, like, what are you talking about? This doesn't make any sense. So, does any of it make sense? I don't know. If it makes you a better person, which I hope it will for people, whatever religion you choose or don't choose, just be a good person.
Yeah.
Tom, it's a messed up time. This is probably the end of days. This is, in Islam, we have a thing called Yom Adin, Day of Judgment. We are probably really close to this. This is the countdown for all of us. This is it. And so I'm going to an iftar tonight with the Muslim Democrats of New York, and you know, pray for good things. That's all I can tell you. It's a
Well,
mess.
I literally do, you know, pray for peace in the world.
Me too. So, all right, Tom, I want to thank you as always for coming on. Follow Tom and sign up for his Substack, hartmannreport.com. It is great. I get it every day. It's free. It's a great read. I look forward to chatting with you in a few weeks, my friend.
Thanks, Dean.